Right now, somewhere in your life, you're bored. Maybe it's scrolling through your phone at midnight. Maybe it's sitting in traffic. Maybe it's a Tuesday afternoon that feels like it has no purpose. And you think, this is just how life is. Boredom is the price of existing. But for most of human history, boredom didn't exist. Not because ancient humans were happier or more fulfilled, but because they didn't have the mental space for it. They were too busy surviving. But here's the thing that changes everything. What they did have was something we've completely lost. And we didn't even realize we lost it. Let me take you back. Imagine you're living 10,000 years ago. The sun goes down. Completely down. Not twilight. Not streetlights bleeding through your window. Actual darkness. The kind where you can't see your own hand in front of your face. What do? You can't scroll. You can't watch TV. You can't leave your camp. Going out into that darkness meant becoming food. Our ancestors' eyes are terrible in the dark compared to the predators hunting them. Leopards, hyenas, wolves. All of them could see you perfectly fine. You could see nothing. So you stayed where the fire was. And here's what's crucial. That fire created a circle roughly 30 feet in diameter. Inside that circle, you were safe. Outside that circle, you died. This wasn't metaphorical. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups have documented that people who wander away from the fire at night are significantly more likely to be killed by predators. Even today. So what did you do with all those hours? Before the fire, the useful day ended at sunset. That's maybe 12 hours in summer, as few as 8 in winter. But fire suddenly added 2 to 4 usable hours to every single day. Those extra hours changed everything. In 2014, an anthropologist named Polly Wiesner published a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. She spent years recording conversations among the Jew/Hoansi Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert, one of the last groups on Earth still living something close to the original human lifestyle. Here's what she found. During the day, about 80% of conversations were practical. Who's hunting where? Which plants are ready? When do we move camp? Daytime talk was work. But at night, around the fire, everything changed. At night, 81% of conversations were stories. Tales of people in distant places. Adventures. Myths about where the world came from. Jokes that made the whole camp laugh. Stories that explained why things were the way they were. Wiesner argued something radical. The campfire is where human culture was born. Not in temples. Not in universities. Not on screens. Around a fire. The campfire was the original theater. The original classroom. The original church. It's where humans first learned to think beyond the immediate present and imagine things that don't exist yet. It's where we learned to see ourselves as part of something larger than the day in front of us. It's where we became human. But the night wasn't just about stories. There was something else happening. Something scientists only rediscovered 30 years ago. In 2001, a historian named Roger E. Kirch published a paper that changed sleep science forever. He spent 16 years digging through historical records. And he found something nobody expected. Over 500 references spanning centuries. Prayer books from the 1400s. Court records. Diaries. Medical texts. Letters from ordinary people. Even passages in Homer's Odyssey. All of them mentioned the same thing. First sleep and second sleep. Before the industrial age, people did not sleep in one continuous block. They went to bed shortly after sunset. They slept for about 4 hours. Then they woke up. They stayed awake for 1 to 2 hours in the middle of the night. Then they went back to sleep for another 4 hours until dawn. This wasn't insomnia. This was normal. This was how every human on the planet slept for thousands of years. And the really interesting part, nobody talked about being tired during the wakeful period. They talked about what they did. A 16th century French physician recommended that couples conceive children during this window because they would do it better. People visited neighbors. They interpreted their dreams while they were still fresh. They wrote. They simply lay in bed in the dark and thought. A doctor's manual from the 1500s advised patients that the best time to study and reflect was during the watch, as they called it. The quiet hours between first and second sleep when the mind was calm and the world was still. Historians had been reading these references for centuries, but they kept translating first sleep as something else, because they couldn't imagine that people ever slept differently than we do now. The assumption was so deep that translators literally mistranslated ancient Greek and medieval Latin to make it fit their modern experience. Then science confirmed what history had been saying all along. In 1992, a psychiatrist named Thomas Ware at the National Institute of Mental Health ran an experiment. He took a group of volunteers and removed all artificial light from their lives. For 1 month, they experienced 14 hours of darkness every night, just like our ancestors would have before fire extended the evening. Within weeks, something extraordinary happened. Every single participant settled into the exact same pattern. 4 hours of sleep, 1 to 3 hours of quiet wakefulness, then 4 more hours of sleep. Nobody told them to do this. Nobody suggested it. They just did it, as if some ancient program had been waiting inside outside them the whole time, buried under centuries of artificial light. But here's where it gets strange. Where measured their hormone levels during the wakeful period, he found something remarkable. The participants were in a state unlike any normal waking state. Their brains were producing elevated levels of prolactin, the same hormone released during meditation and after orgasm. They described feeling peaceful, reflective, almost meditative. It wasn't just a gap in sleep. It was its own distinct state of consciousness, one that most modern humans have never experienced. So think about what your ancestors were actually doing. They weren't stressed about productivity. They weren't checking email. They weren't doom scrolling. They were lying in the dark with their own minds. For 1 to 3 hours every single night, they had nothing to do but think. Think about their lives. Think about their dreams. Think about who they were and what mattered to them. They had built-in time for reflection every single night. Not meditation apps, not therapy, not self-help books, just silence and darkness and their own thoughts. And that state, that peaceful, meditative state between first and second sleep, that's where something happened. That's where they processed, where they solved problems, where they made sense of their lives. That's how they killed boredom, not by distraction, by depth. But then everything changed. In the 1600s, cities began installing street lamps. Paris was one of the first, under Louis XIV, who wanted to reduce crime. London followed. The night, which had been a place of danger and fear, slowly became navigable. Then came cheaper candles. Then gas lamps in the 1800s. Then in 1879, Thomas Edison commercialized the electric light bulb. And within a generation, the night as humans had known it for 300,000 years was gone. Here's something most people don't know. The word curfew comes from the French couvre-feu. It literally means cover fire. In medieval towns, a bell would ring at night, signaling everyone to cover or extinguish their fires. Not because of safety, because night was supposed to be dark. Night was when you slept. Night was when you were vulnerable. For most of history, being out at night was suspicious. In many medieval European cities, walking outside after dark without a lantern was literally illegal. Night belonged to criminals and the supernatural. People feared it in a way that's almost impossible for us to understand today. And then we conquered it. We flooded it with light, and we thought that was progress. But here's what we lost. Modern humans are exposed to artificial light an average of 7 to 8 hours after sunset. This light, especially the blue light from screens, suppresses your body's production of melatonin, the hormone that regulates sleep. Your body doesn't know the difference between a light bulb and the sun. When light hits your retina at 11 p.m., your brain interprets it as daytime. It delays melatonin release. It fragments your sleep. It disrupts the circadian rhythm that evolved over millions of years. Researchers have found that people who go camping for just 1 week with no artificial light at all have their melatonin cycles reset by nearly 2 hours. That's all it takes for 300,000 years of programming to reassert itself. But that's not the deepest loss. We didn't just change when we sleep. We eliminated an entire phase of human consciousness. That quiet, reflective state between first and second sleep. The state that subjects described as peaceful and meditative. The state where people processed their lives and made sense of themselves.